Greetings, my name is Blaze, and today's video is actually a video request. Our request comes from Dorothy Lowther, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name. So the question is, what are your thoughts on the concept of tarot readings, palmistry, and tea leaf readings? Are these methods of gaining knowledge from the Akashic Records? If not, how would someone go about gaining that kind of wisdom? And does the Akashic Records actually exist? Or is this nothing more than a modern day pagan myth? First of all, Dorothy, I'd like to thank you for your video request. The second thing is, I almost feel like this is more a request specifically for the Akashic Records versus tarot, palmistry, and tea leaf reading. So I guess one of the things to start with is just a disclaimer. The Akashic Records, which I might be pronouncing wrong as well, I'm not very familiar with. I'd actually never heard of it until you had brought it up. Reading about it, it does seem to refer to a belief. It seems to be Indian in origin, unless I'm mistaken, which makes sense because we also talk about the fifth element. To some, we'll use the term Akasha, and the Akashic, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, records would kind of be associated with that. So that kind of makes sense to a degree, potentially. Again, I've not heard of it before, but it seems to be referencing a record of all thoughts, things, and actions that have ever happened or occurred. So does that actually exist? Honestly, I don't know if we'll ever know for sure if something like that exists. Is it possible? Potentially, sure, why not? And what I mean by that is it seems as life happens, it leaves behind an echo, a remnant, something that was previously there before. You see this in all parts of life. Someone passes, their body remains. If you eat, it passes through you, and there's some effect on your body both from eating and disposing of the waste afterwards. So there's always seems to be a remnant left as life exists. So the thought or concept that there's some form of a record or an echo, so to speak, does kind of make sense in theory, to me at least. I'm not saying that it's accurate or it exists because I'm not sure. Again, this is something new that I recently had looked into. Now, when it comes to that, though, I'm not sure if I would say that the Akashic Records exist so much as something similar in theory based upon a remnant or an echo left from thoughts or actions that we go through. Accessing that type of information or records, I'm not sure if I would say tarot, or you can say tarot, but tarot is usually the way I hear it pronounced, is one way of looking with divination to assess what is, and then to get glimpses of what may have been and might be. So it's kind of like a way of interacting with the person in front of you to kind of read the vibrations of the current state of what's going on. So the thoughts of the future are based upon the current state of the person, as I understand it. And when it comes to tarot, you're talking about cards that are symbolic, and that person is manipulating the cards and putting their current state of being and pushing that into the cards for the reader to kind of ascertain what may be going on currently and to give advice. When it comes to something like palmistry, you are talking about something you're born with and then something that might change as you live your life. So it's sort of a physical representation of who you are. But I'm not sure, again, in that essence, is that tapping into the Akashic Records or something like that? I'm not sure. Tea leaves, talking about reading tea leaves. Again, you're talking about someone actually manipulating the tea leaves right then and there. You brew your tea with actual leaves. So instead of using one of your tea bags and stuff and pulling them out, you leave the leaves in there and they drink it. And what's left over, the remnants, that's what you use to read. After they've drunken the tea leaves that remain at the bottom, apparently you can get, again, insight and divination into that sort of like, I guess it's kind of like cloud reading where you're sort of seeing the images appear in front of you, but at least this is a flat state of someone drinking from the tea and leaving that impression behind. So the way that I would interpret it, based upon what it seems like the Akashic Records could potentially be if they exist, is it seems like drinking those tea leaves, you're imprinting in a way similar to what would be recorded in the Akashic Records. So that seems like a similarity there. Likewise, with the tarot, you're manipulating the cards to get a reading to, again, that would be like an entry, almost like a carbon copy in a way. Now, the palmistry, on the other hand, that would suggest, again, that your physical lines in your hand are representative of what was and what may be. And, of course, are going to change as you grow as a person. And they're going to, whether or not you work with your hands and how much you work with your hands, or if they end up getting burned or scarred, so that's going to change them as well. So in a sense, it kind of sounds like there is the possibility of multiple forms of divination. I mean, you can talk anything from runestones to casting sticks, to casting bones, to casting dice. There's divination with animals, there's water scrying, there's crystal scrying, there's all sorts of different ways of potentially interacting with what is and perceiving what's possible around you. Now, whether or not that relates back directly, again, to this potential record existing, I think it's just something to consider. Me personally, I'm not sure if I would say the Akashic Records exist, just for the simple fact that I don't know enough about them. Even my possible echo theory that it's recorded somewhere, I don't know if I would even say that. I think things happen, and those that are wise or educated have the ability to read and interpret what was left behind. I think that might be one type of the record, but that's more of a physical record. That's like archaeology potential. When you're talking about a spiritual manifest, I feel like echoes fade with time. So when you have a thought or feeling or emotion, I think that fades. If you think about like a haunted house or something, if something really bad happened in that house and there's a remnant, an essence left behind, whether that actual be a being or just that negative feeling. So yeah, that stands to theory, but I believe that stuff fades over time and can be cleansed or wiped away. So I don't know if I would buy into personally that there's an official standing record. Could it exist? Yes. Do I believe it exists? I question it, and I don't know if I have a stance today on whether or not I agree with it or not. I do open my mind to the possibility of it. And again, as far as being able to tap in the records like this, I think that comes down to educating yourself on seeing these subtle signs and vibrations in life, as well as working with different forms of divination if you so choose to go that route. So I guess it depends on why you want to access those records. Are you accessing those records for advice or wisdom of how to move forward with the next couple steps or stages in your life? Or are you trying to access them to determine what may have happened in the past? Or is this just to get insight or another view on what your current situation is in life? So what purpose you're going through would be determinant, or a determining factor, I guess I would say, in what direction you might consider going in to gain that type of an insight. But yeah, it's a new concept to me. So I'm sorry if it doesn't directly answer your question, but definitely brings up some things to think about and talk about. And, if someone else is watching and is familiar with the Akashic Records, feel free to share links below, put your thoughts below as well. And again, thank you for the question. Unfortunately, I'm not always going to know the answer, so I'll just share my thoughts, and hopefully that gives you something new to consider. Thanks for watching.